All right, so anyway,
There's just a lot of.
so here's the story. I learned this back in college. It's supposed to be a true story. This is not like a legend.
So it's not.
This is not
Pretty
a legend.
cool story, bro.
This is the one that was passed down, and because it's not like one of those, you know how you hear the legends sometimes, it's like, our great-grandfather was an eagle, and then we descended from him, but they're humans, right? And so you go, okay, probably not a legend that's true, right? Because I doubt it. This is one that's actually sad, and so it's been passed down as more of a historical account than a legend. Anyway, Caribbean islands, a long time ago. Not last week. Before Pirates of the Caribbean, right?
Dang it.
I know. Yeah, I thought this was about Johnny Depp. So, anyway, Medicine Man. Now, you guys know about the Medicine Man? The Medicine Man was considered to be the most wise member of the tribe, the shaman, right? Considered to be the most wise, looked up to, respected. He would always go on his walk around that part of the island. So one day he's there, he looks out, and he sees that the waves aren't moving in a few spots like they're supposed to be moving, right? So they'll kind of go, then they'll stop, and they'll kind of go back out, go, stop, go back out, and they'll do that in like a circular, oval pattern. But he can't figure out why, because there's nothing there. And it's doing it in 3 different spots. Can't figure out why. So he's thinking about it, he's sitting there staring at it for a while, goes back, says, no, nothing big. It kind of bugs him the rest of the day. And then, you know, but okay, no big deal. Comes out the next day, same thing, same spot. Just boom, same problem. And he's looking and he's going, I've never seen anything like this. Like, but there's nothing there. What can it be? It's not like it's, you know, a swell or anything like that. There's nothing underneath it. Like nothing's getting sucked down. It's just there on the surface. 3rd day, he comes out and it's still there. And so finally he sits there, he does, you know, a little bit of their form of meditation. And he looks up and he says, there has to be something there. And he kind of makes out the outline of something. Looks like a really big like canoe, what they used as canoes back then. So he kind of sits down again, looks up, and you can see more of it. You can actually see this big white, it looked like a sheet, you know, but they didn't have sheets, but a big white thing attached to it. So finally he looks and he sees that there's these 3 objects that look like a huge canoe with, you know, something big on the top of them, these big pieces sticking out, what we know as ships, right? But they had never seen them before. And so finally he realizes these things have been there the whole time. I couldn't see them. And he goes back and he tells the tribe. Well, the tribe believes the medicine man. So immediately they come and they see him right away. And that was the Caribbean's first encounter with Columbus and his crew. But at first, the medicine man couldn't see him. Why? Well, there's this, when you get to study the brain, you can realize that if the brain, your brain, processes I think it's 4,000 perceptions in a second, but it'll take in 4,000, it can only process 2,000. It can only process half of those. And usually, it'll only process what's familiar. And so, the psychology behind it is that this guy had nothing to relate that vision to. And so, because he didn't think that those could be real, he didn't think that those existed. And so when he saw them, he only saw what he thought could exist, not what was actually there. And it's a crazy story, but it had been passed down over all the years. That was why, I mean, one of the reasons why they thought so differently of the explorers when they actually came aboard. So that maybe they had supernatural powers, right? You know, you hear the story about how they didn't know who they were or where they'd come from. They'd never seen anything like that. Well, it also seemed invisible in the beginning, right? And that added to the whole mystique. And but psychology describes that as saying, hey, you don't know what you're seeing because you've never seen anything like that. You literally can't comprehend. They'll do studies on that today. People who have never seen something, show them something they've never seen, and they'll look literally right past it. They'll look through it. They'll look around it. Even if they see the effects of it, they won't be able to see what's causing it, right? And the idea, it's crazy. It's really crazy. And so the idea is that the truth can be there and be visible to one person, and yet completely invisible, literally completely invisible to another person, right? So if I were to tell you right now, you're actually, remember you guys seen The Matrix?
Yep.
We watched it in youth group one time, and they keep telling him, like, you've always, when they bring Neo out of the Matrix and into what's reality, and they say, no, you've always been just in the Matrix. You've just been in this little pod, right? And they've been feeding you all of these images, but that none of that was real. And he's like, of course that was real. I go out, I go to the store, I buy my eggs, I do all of these things, of course it was real. There's no way that it was just a vision. And I say, no, not really. You were being fed a lie, right? If I were to tell you right now that you are imprisoned and you have chains around you, and I could guarantee you that that was true if you could just see the reality, what would you say?
Total Recall.
Way to make the connection. I like it. That's awesome. Yeah, I know. Movie night.
You said it sucks.
It's Adam with the dollars.
Got terrible reviews, man.
Oh, yeah.
We need to watch The Governator.
The Governator. No, we can watch Expendables too.
Yes!
Yeah.
Dude, Chuck Norris is
Shannon is.
Are you serious?
Yes, Chuck Norris is in Expendables too, am I right?
Yeah, I know.
Chuck Norris, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
There's
Bruce
a
Willis.
60% chance that it's raining right now.
Right? We didn't get to that part though. I don't think I've seen that.
Don't have sex.
But
You get
anyway.
pregnant and die.
So it's the idea that there can be a reality there that you don't see, right? So now I'm going to bring a second point around to join the first point, and we're gonna make a baby that is the point of the sermon, right?
Yes, let's make a baby.
Let's make a baby.
Be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah. Be fruitful.
I can dip on top.
Big spoon. Oh yeah.
Anyway,
Anything but an
so you guys remember? Do you guys remember when you were kids? And okay, here's the story from when I was a kid. I'm down the street at someone's house. Okay, you know how you're a little kid and you really look up to the older kids because they're just the coolest people on the block, right? They're taller, they're fun, right? And your parents aren't fun.
They teach you
right?
things that you never would have known. Like, holy crap, there was a...
Yeah, I know. So, you guys remember that. Well, there was this kid down the street that I really looked up to, and he was always into sports, and I was into sports. I'm 4 at the time, right? I think I was 4. Maybe even I was 3. But, exactly, I was 5'10". Yeah, so it was awkward. It was an awkward time for me. And so we're playing baseball one day. We're playing in my front yard. And he said, all right, you gotta give this one everything you got or whatever. And okay, it had to be funny, like you know how little kids go, holding the bat, right?
That's you in the 5
And he pulls out a softball. And we haven't played with a softball before. We've played just with a foam one. And he pulls out the softball, and mind you, this is a wood bat. And he goes, I think you're ready for this. Something like that, right? I don't remember all the details. It's probably what I would have said. But he's like, basically, all right, I'm going to pitch you the softball. And I'm ready to go, little 5'10", 4-year-old Mitch. And I just wind up, which is probably not even proper form. It probably was like a half circle, kind of a thing. And I just give it everything I got. Now, with a foam ball, I wasn't hitting it very far. I was never connecting that well. And if it hit something, it didn't matter. I'm from here, and the bedroom window is that window right behind the flowers. I connect like a boss. This is like Barry Bonds style, right? Like a boss. I love the shirt, by the way. That's awesome. So I connect. Like this is an all-star connection. If I kept connecting like this, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in the pros. And I connect right into the window. And now there were the plastic windows. Like we don't have glass. My parents don't have glass windows at their house. It's that really flexible plastic, which is worse. Because with a glass window, it just goes, and it shatters, and okay, whatever. This one, you just hear this, and you just see the window, like, kind of a thing. And
it didn't break.
No, it didn't break.
Okay.
And so I'm still afraid of my mom to this day, right? And especially as a kid, like you're really afraid of your mom. And I'm just standing there going, like, hide the evidence kind of a thing. And he looks at me, and I remember him smiling and going, that was, like a good hit and whatever, like no big deal, it's going to be all right. And a second later, my mom comes flying out the door, and there were horns, there was a tail, there was fire, and she's just like, what just happened? What are you doing? Why is that bat in your hands? Why is the ball there? Why was the ball there? Like just she's screaming, right? And whatever she was saying at the time. And I was so scared. I just remember like looking up at her, and I'm short anyway. I'm not really 5'10". I'm 5'2". And I just remember like feeling really short, and I just look up at her. I'm like, sorry, Mom. And she says the thing that all parents say when you say you're sorry. Oh no, you ain't sorry yet, but you're gonna be, right? You know how that goes, right? It's like whenever you do something wrong, like, Mom, I'm sorry, I called you an idiot and said that you look like a man, which I did say that one. But there's context on that. Anyway, and I'm like,
story,
Mom, I'm sorry. She's like, no, you're not. I was like, no, I really am sorry. No, you're not. But someday you're gonna be. Right? You know how that goes, right? When the parents say that, like, no, you're not, but you're going to be, right? Or you watch on TV in a good context, and they're like, we'll give you a deal. We'll give you the best deal, kind of a thing. It's like, it's not just this, it's this, right? Whether good or bad, right? So bringing all that back around, I have learned over the last few years, as I get farther along with God, that I don't look at life the same way. And we talked about this a little bit the other night when we were talking around, where we were talking about sex. And I said, yeah, I don't view women the same way. I don't view sex the same way as I used to. But it's not the way that you hear most Christians referring to it. And it's not the way that it used to be. In fact, I enjoy all of those things and look forward to those things more, but it's so different than what you're used to, right? Because most Christians, are told just, I love that line from Mean Girls, like, don't have sex, you'll get pregnant and you'll die. Right?
That's an epic movie. I don't care if you're a guy.
I love that movie.
It is an awesome movie.
Thank you.
It is.
Thank
All
you.
right? Am I right? Mean Girls is awesome.
Mean Girls is awesome.
My boobs can tell the weather.
Right? There's a 60% chance it's already raining. It's ESPN. Yeah. So,
oh my God, that's so fetchy, dude.
But you go into most churches, and we talked about this the other week, you go into most churches, and that's how it's talked about. Like, even if you're allowed to have the desires, don't act on them. And how do you see most of the people you know that are Christians, right? Oh, no, we just don't go there, we don't talk about that, we don't think about that, right?
Everybody
or it's the other way,
that.
or it's the other way around. It's like, God created sex is a good thing, it's all right, just, do whatever you want, right? And that's the other side. You kind of get the two extremes. I don't fit into either one of those, and that's taken the last few years.
He's excited.
Harry, I get the joke, but it wasn't that funny,
Harry's laugh is funny.
Harry, this is going on the internet. You are aware, right?
This is recording, and I'm not signing up for that.
All aboard!
You did press the right button, right?
So anyway, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a green button. No, I'm just kidding, I did. And so anyway, my views have changed quite a bit and been quite different than what you normally see. And what's interesting as I've gone along is that...
Okay.
Who wants water? Whoa!
Okay.
I actually want one too.
Everyone.
Okay, Josh!
Whoa! Nice grab.
This guy's in baseball. It's not
Dude,
fair.
that was a good grab.
He's in baseball.
Oh,
He's not in baseball.
Sounds like a girl.
Shut up!
Oh, that was almost the, yeah. At least you had the pillow there. At least
He hit the phone out of my hand.
Stop
Okay, Mikey, you have been on your aims. You're doing good.
This.
You're doing good.
No, he needs to
you.
God won't.
Okay, he's doing good on the aim. Let's be honest.
He is doing pretty good on
He
it.
throws
Here we go.
kind of funky though.
Oh, right between your legs! Oh!
Wow, really glad.
Your phone is vibrating. Oh, that's not duck. You need to duck.
Hey, don't put this door.
She knows where you live. Chloe gets pegged at summer camp. Like
She knows where you
Oh, hey, that's not fair. You got way too close. That's cheating.
Because when you duck from it, it's totally going to make it better.
Oh my gosh.
It just means it's going to hit you on the way down. It's going to be better off if you catch it. Yeah.
It wasn't me throwing
That was.
Everyone got water? Are we fine?
Did you get one, Michael?
No, I need another one. No, that's good.
Thank you, Michael. That was
Thank you.
Thank you,
Everybody
Michael.
say thank you, Michael.
Thank you,
Michael!
All right.
You're welcome.
I just
I
got
didn't say thank you.
Anyway.
We're not friends.
Jeez, you're just awful. You're just the worst kind of person.
Wow.
How's that feel?
I was quoting Chloe.
How's it feel to be Chloe?
After I
No.
Anyway, so all that to say that I remember looking back when I was first starting out as a Christian, and you remember that verse from it's John 10? I want to say John 10:10. He says,
3:16. Yeah.
oh yeah,
Everyone knows
yeah.
316.
That one. I've heard of that before. Yeah, I've seen it in a football game or something.
Exactly.
It's on a bumper sticker once.
On the cup of In-N-Out, I think.
Right, that kind of thing. Yeah,
I
exactly.
really want to I haven't had food yet.
But it's John 10:10. You remember the 10:10? And he goes, Jesus says in the NIV, he says, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free, and you will be free indeed. Which, we're kind of used to.
The truth will set you free.
Free indeed. You can just see a southern preacher saying, free indeed, right? But translated into our modern language, it's kind of like what our parents used to say to us, but with a good connotation. The truth will set you free, and you're going to be free, all right.
That's from Big Liar. I mean,
Big Fat Liar.
It's from the
Liar.
Bible. Gosh.
Big Fat Liar was first.
Oh, it's Tyrone singing. Yeah.
Tyrone.
It's the janitor singing, yeah.
Tyrone's awesome.
We should come up with a catchphrase for that. It's always real.
It's always Tyrone.
I think we only got two catchphrases. Get buff. Gwen Stacy.
Gwen Stacy.
Disco Drew.
Gwen Stacy.
So-
Oh man, that was so.
Anyway.
Whoa!
Nice, that's good.
Those jokes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember hearing that verse, and no one had ever put it that way to me before, right? You're gonna be free, all right, and no one ever put it that way. But I remember thinking about Christianity as anything but, right? Because when you become a Christian, it means that you're following a set of rules. That's what
Amen.
It means. That's what it means. It's right. It's like I used to go out
Hey,
and
you never
just
listen to me. That's what I always
you
say.
know, have sex with whoever I wanted, drink whenever I wanted. This was just in 3rd grade, right? And yeah, I could do whatever I then I could do whatever I wanted and it didn't matter. But now that I'm a Christian, there's this set of rules that I have to live by, and I can't do it. And so I would always read the verse, you'll be free and free indeed, and I went, I don't know what that means. Right? And it would be kind of like that story I told about, the guy not being able to see the ships. I'm literally reading the verse, I'm looking at the verse, and,
What did you do to the conch?
Gary.
Back.
If you take care of the conch, then you take
love
care
the
of
conch.
Wow.
Love the conch.
Alex,
Oh,
Alex
and
is
all the
always
magic
like-
conch.
You gotta love the conch. Anyone who does not love the conch means they love to get a kick from my boot and the willies.
Reset button.
And for the girls,
I hate
I'm
you,
not gonna
conch.
get a girl.
There's a reset
Oh,
button.
yeah.
Well, you won't.
You're getting girls, screw with the conscience as much as you want.
We'll pass the conch. Anyway,
I give all the power to the
Drink
conch.
from the
Yeah.
conch.
I wasn't supposed to.
I mean,
Drink
Drink
from
from the
the conch.
okay.
It said you wouldn't
No,
be
no,
there.
now.
No, it's all dusty and grimy.
I'm
and
drunk.
It's a
shelled.
cup.
It's now
We're playing baseball.
No, no.
Um,
it has Mitch's.
Anyway,
Just the cup.
so bring it back around. So I remember looking over that verse, kind of like the guy looked at the ships. You read it, it's there, but you just kind of skim over it, and you have nothing to relate it to because nothing in my Christian vocabulary said anything about freedom. And I wouldn't have said it to you that way, right? But when you think about it, that's what it is. It's a list of rules. It's a bunch of things that I can't do. And for a lot of us, that is Christianity. And the funny thing is that when you act that way, and when that's your Christianity, you're actually pretty chained up, even though you can't see it. Again, going back to the ship thing. You don't literally see chains hanging off of you, right? You may not even see what's going on anyway, but that's a really chained up way to live. That's how the Pharisees lived. And we see that Jesus and the Pharisees did not get along all that well, right? And when Jesus is talking to them so often, he gets mad at them for interpreting it in a way that it was not intended to be, right? What does Jesus say with his first big public sermon, right? I've come to tell you what I meant,
The Sermon on the Mount.
right? The Sermon on the Mount. Most of the translations have it, I have not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. Again, translated into language we would understand. I came to tell you what I meant, right? And he goes into this whole thing about how it's what's in your heart. And he sets these standards that seem impossibly high, right? Of course, nobody can follow these, right? Well, because it's the idea is what's in your heart. And he caps it off by saying that at the end. He says it's all about what's in your heart. Because this is how it is in heaven. Of course you can't do this. You can never be this perfect, right? It's about what's in your heart. And it's a crazy thought because I don't think that we live that freely. When you're living these things from your heart, you'll find out that you're doing what the law says, right? But you're not doing it because you're sitting there with a list of things going, okay, if a hot chick comes up to me naked, I cannot have sex for this, this, and this reason, right? I mean, and that's a list that you're living by. It's not anything in your heart, because in your heart, you're beating yourself down because you think you have to do it, right? And Jesus sits there and says, you're going to be free. Like, really free. I mean it. Super free. I'm not joking, right? Kind of like our parents would have said, like, oh, you're going to be sorry, right? Oh, you're going to be free. And it's so rare for us to experience this. And it's a really cool story. This is a made-up one, but it's a story of a man.
Named Jim.
And everything goes wrong in his life. And he loses his job, loses his wife, gets divorced. He thinks low of himself anyway. He's got no self-confidence. And so he goes and he locks himself in see those water tanks, like the littler water tanks? He locks himself in a water tank in the middle of nowhere, right? And so occasionally,
This is my story. What the hell?
Yeah. I think it's a lot of it. It's my story. Every time I read the story, I'm like, it's me, And so he isolates himself from the rest of the world, right? Because he can't handle
This
it.
is more my story.
So, but you know what I'm saying? Like metaphorically. Oh!
Woo!
On camera.
That's my water.
I hope you were excited to
I
that
didn't throw that
side.
at anybody's mouth. It's mine. I'm thirsty.
Yeah, I know, because once it's over there drinking all the water.
I'm just having some.
You need the conch more than I do.
I'm just having some me.
It bounced perfectly
everyone
off,
thinks
too.
that.
That was good.
Everyone
Anyway,
thinks that.
bringing it back around. So he's in the desert. He's isolated himself, which is about what
You need
Woods is
some
going
ice.
to do.
Woods, are you okay?
You need to walk it
Woods,
off.
it's okay to
You're a
cry.
woman. You wouldn't understand.
That's what you get for drinking.
It's okay. I'll get it tomorrow at school.
Next person who throws a bottle, I hit them in the nuts.
Very
Oh,
lost.
you got it coming anyway.
Such a loss.
You got it coming anyway. You're getting two of them. Anyway, so the guy locks himself in here, and second day he's there. This guy walks up with a machine gun and starts shooting at the water tank. And so the bullets are ricocheting around. He gets hit by a few of them. Now there's a bunch of holes in the water tank. The guy comes back the next day, starts shooting again, and the water tank's got more and more holes in it. It's the third day. Now this place is like, and it's about to fall apart, and the guy's super injured, right? He's hurting like crazy, and he walks out finally. Like there's enough holes in it that he can actually push out of it. And he gets out there and he sees the guy standing there with the machine gun. And he says, "Well, guess you're gonna kill me now." The guy doesn't say anything. He just stands there and he says, "All right, well, I just got to know one thing. Like, why can't you just let me be at peace, right, and live out the rest of my life alone as a failure the way I want to be, without you having to make it worse by shooting me?" And the guy says, "Oh, I never meant to hurt you at all. I mean, you don't understand." He drops the gun. He says, "I was trying to free you. I was trying to get you out of there, right?" And yeah.
Damn, well, that sucks.
Yeah. Dang it. New tank. Let's have a better understanding. But yeah, it's funny because with what Jesus said and what he intended to free us. And all too often, we just get depressed. We read the standard that God sets, right? And we read the Sermon on the Mount, and we go, that's not me. And I need to try harder. And you try harder. And you really can't do it. And you beat yourself up, or you just go, you know what, that's not what he meant, and it's all good. But you never really do understand what he means. And then at some point, God will come along, if you let him, and I did, and he'll shoot a bunch of holes in the tank. And it's going to hurt. It's a tough process, there's no doubt. But at some point, you walk out of that. And it's like, why is this going on? Why are you shaking these things up? And he goes, I wasn't trying to hurt you at all. I'm trying to free you. Right?
There's easier ways than shooting the tank.
Right. But
Yeah.
that's to make the point that it hurts. It really does. And so bringing both of those stories back around, I think that we miss, because we don't see it, we don't realize how chained up we often are. Whether you're living, that's a reach we just don't make. So. My conch.
This is still going on the internet.
Don't ladder us up. I should.
Yeah.
No, you can have my conch.
He's
Oh,
in
yeah.
the frame the same Basie.
But anyway, so the idea is that whether you live like that really strict kind of a deal, or whether you're like, yeah, you know, I don't know, yeah, it's all good, whatever it may be, whether you realize it or not, you really are chained up until God has gotten a hold of you and really shown you what freedom is. And that's a heck of a process along the way. But God will show you a freedom. It's a sign. It's a sign.
Exactly. What? But what?
Yeah, I know. It's the apocalypse. Yeah. But anyway, God will show you a freedom that you've never known, and also weird noises like that.
I feel so bad for the water tank right now.
Yeah. I know. What about the water tank? I'm gonna heal it. Yeah. But anyway, so God will show you what the trademark of truth. If I had to say this, the trademark of truth is that it sets you free. Because that's the first part of the verse, right? The truth will set you free, and you'll be free.
Dude,
Drea ducks.
horrible.
I just talked to her.
She doesn't catch. She
Just like
does.
how Perry said that water on the tree.
No.
He threw it so hard.
Johnny, pick me up.
Oh.
Let's see how good you throw.
Johnny! Oh my god.
Better thrower.
Yes.
Underhand. Overhand, I trust. No.
Did you guys finish the ones you had?
Woods'
Woods finished
See, ducking your head does work.
Almost got Chloe.
Almost got Woods' That was straight to her, and then Woods. That was awesome. He tried to kill
That
Chloe.
was awesome. Yeah. All right.
Oh, no. Thank you, John.
Internet.
That wasn't
Your phone
They don't even
fell.
care.
No, I think it's trying to update itself.
We're not, it's dead.
Okay.
At least we got it on that.
Yay.
Did your phone
Iron
die?
heads.
Or was it just me?
We're always
Oh,
like
it
this.
is.
This is
Anyway.
not an off night. We're always like this.
Yeah, I know.
And I just chugged like 3.
Dude, would you have it any other way? I mean, honestly. And so that's the idea about truth, is it'll set you free. And I gotta ask you, how free do you really feel? And so much of the stuff that I thought was fun, right? I couldn't see how much there were chains in the way that I was having fun. And I can honestly say,
No,
okay, that was funny.
Gary,
That was funny.
I got that one.
listening.
But if I could tell you, if I told you right now that whether it was before I was a Christian, doing whatever I wanted, or when I was a Christian, thinking that it was a list of rules I had to live by, if I told you that I am enjoying life on every level, genuinely, and living from my heart, more than ever before, and enjoying life than either of those other times, and it's because I didn't know what was going on, right? Like the guy being shot in the tank. I didn't realize what was going on, but God was setting me free. And it is a heck of a freedom, and it is a heck of a life, right? I've come so that you can have life to its fullest. You can live from your heart. You look at me like I'm crazy. You just don't see it. It's the shift that you don't see, because it's never something you've been exposed to. And that's something that we are going to start touching on. And in the sermons we're going to have in the upcoming weeks, we're going to go over some of the summer camp stuff. We're going to start a different series. But the idea as we go along is that when you experience this stuff, everything, like the trademark of truth, and God tells the truth, the trademark of truth is it sets you free. And if at any point you're sitting there during the sermon going, yeah, that sounds like a bunch of rules, or yeah, that sounds like it's going to spoil my fun, that's not setting you free then, is it?
Yes, it is.
So that's not true then. The way you're perceiving it ain't true. It's like looking and saying there's nothing there, but why is the water doing what it's doing? Well, because you're not seeing what's really there, you know? It reminds me of what Paul said, Paul the Apostle in one of his letters. He said, I can do anything, but not everything is good for me. And God has shown me like what it is to live free. And now I can sit there and go, well, I don't want to do that because it's going to chain me up. But I can genuinely say it. It's like that's one of the two places I've been in my life in the past. And as much as I thought those were the greatest things I had going, and that was as good as it gets, it wasn't. I wouldn't go back. And I never understood what Paul was saying, because most of the times you hear people quote that, they're like, well, sure you could do anything, but you shouldn't do everything because it's a sin. And that's not the heart of what he's saying. It's, yeah, I mean, I could do anything. Paul was a Pharisee. He knows what it's like to live by that set of rules. He's like,
I thought Paul was a fisherman.
No, Paul was a Pharisee.
Peter was the fisherman.
Peter was the fisherman. Paul's the guy who was living by that set of rules. And he goes, yeah, I know what freedom is. I mean, I could do anything, but not everything is good for me. In other words, I go back to those chains that I didn't realize I had, right? And I just, final point, going back to the Garden of Eden, right? What does Satan do that really gets Adam and Eve in the end, right? In the beginning and the end. What is going on in their minds that really led them to do what they did? They questioned God's character. I don't think we ever realize that. Satan goes, if you ever read what Satan says, he's so tricky and he's so right on, because God says, I'm going to give you everything but one thing. Like that's the symbolism of the story. I'm going to give you literally everything. You can do whatever you want except for one thing.
What?
Just don't do it, right? Eat from the tree, so to speak.
Right.
Right? Don't do that one thing. And everything else you can do. Like, how could you top that? But what does Satan go? He starts going at God's character. Oh, well, he only told you not to do that one thing. I mean, I know you can do everything, but he really doesn't.
Thing is the best thing.
But exactly. That's what he says. And by saying that, what does that do? Oh, God's holding out on you. Exactly.
That one thing will make you better than God.
Exactly. And it's questioning God's character. And all of a sudden they sit there and go, oh, God doesn't really want what's best for us. And isn't that what we still struggle with today? With that set of rules? Or that's why we go to the exact opposite end? We really don't think God wants what's best for us. He's been using that trick since the beginning. It got him in the beginning, it gets us now. It's questioning God's character. God doesn't really want what's best for me. What's funny is that when you go what you think is best for you, it does everything but set you free. And we see how that goes. So it's something to think about as we go about all of these, and we go into youth convention, because it's always going to come up in any sermon you hear. If it sounds like it's going to rob you of your joy, you probably don't know what real joy is. And I can tell you that it sounds crazy. It's that ship you can't see, but it really is real. We'll start making that more practical in the sermons as we go along. But I want to lay a groundwork for all that, because I feel like that doesn't get said often enough. We read that verse and it's like, what the heck did he mean by that? And we just skip over it because we don't realize what's going on there. So, something to think about. All right, any questions?
Games.
Comments?
Sorry.
I was thinking
All right.
of something like this because we haven't had dinner yet.
I'm with you. Let's go, John.
Yeah.
Joel,
What's
Whoa.
up?
Let's go.
Boom. What's up?
Mitch,
No,
we
we
gotta
need to
send
pray
that
out.
to
We
give
need
you-
to pray out, man.
Oh, true.
the giant
Okay, never mind.
We should probably stop.
All right.
The diameter of what?